The crew that maintains the Palm Springs aerial tramway is not made up of thrill seekers or daredevils.
What you don't want to do is don't put your arm anywhere in this direction.
But danger is a part of their jobs. Once a week, they strap into the carriage that rides above the tram cars, beginning at the mountain station. They stop and hook on to every tower that supports the cables to grease them. The final stop on their journey sits at an elevation of 8,516 feet. Someone who's not used to this does not need to look down to feel uneasy. Just opening your eyes can cause sensory overload. Tramway Vice President of Maintenance Greg Vogelsong vividly remembers his first trip up.
That would have been 1979. And that was when the old carriages were here and the old cabins. My first trip up, it was white knuckles the entire way, you know, and they told me, they said, you don't necessarily have to open your eyes, but you do need to get used to the feeling of what it's going to be like up here, which we did, you know, and then after a while you open your eyes and you get a little bit more comfortable with it, but you always want to have a certain amount of fear because that keeps you safe.
Chris Barch has been doing maintenance on the tram for 6 years. His first job there was selling tickets at the mountain station, and he's worked his way up, way up.
I'd done some minor mechanic work in other jobs that I had and just progressed from selling tickets into operations, which was riding on the tram car itself with customers, and then into this. It just sort of worked out.
Every member of the maintenance team told us working together is the best way to stay safe. They always go up 2 at a time.
It's just kind of like the buddy system, you know. If you got a problem, your buddy will help you out, and that's why the crew themselves, we depend on each other so very much to get our job done.
The job includes a weekly inspection and greasing of the towers and cables that make the tram run.
As the track ropes set on the towers support the track ropes, is what the car rides on. They slide back and forth on the towers as the car goes between them in the spans. We're taking and greasing underneath the track rope, between the track rope and the bronze profile, to keep it a smooth transition. It prevents wear on the track rope. And we're also inspecting the towers and the line, the tram line itself, with all the cables and the slack carriers we saw as we came up.
On the ground, the job would seem routine, but does working at this elevation ever feel routine?
It does, yeah, but it's still the guys are always, you know, safety conscious, and they have to be aware of it at all times. Because, you know, one thing you think about when you're putting on that safety harness is, you know, I'm going somewhere where a lot of people don't go, and if you want to make sure that you get home to your family at night, you want to make sure all your safety equipment is in good, proper working order and you're tied off.
Scott Hines expected 7 days and 6 nights on the street to be physically exhausting, and it was. What he didn't expect was to be emotionally spent.
I've just heard one story after another of heartache, and it just gets to the point where it's almost too much to take. I had no idea these problems were as widespread as they are in our community.
Traveling by foot and by bus from one end of the Coachella Valley to the other, Hines approached the homeless and the working poor to give them a chance to tell their stories.
We just met people on the streets or on the buses or in the shelters, and it was amazing to me how almost everyone wanted to tell their story. They wanted to be heard. They feel forgotten or invisible.
Students from the Cathedral City High School Digital Arts and Technology Academy met up with Hines at various stops on his journey. They documented to tape the stories of the people that the councilman met. The footage will be turned into a documentary. The students will not need to see the finished product to learn its lessons.
I never really thought of people being homeless and people not having food, and I realized that I appreciate everything that I have now. Following Scott for a short period of time, I learned that I appreciate everything that I have, whether it's a car or a home or my family, that I know that everybody will be there for me.
Before, I used to just think, well, homeless people are just like, I don't want to be mean but lazy and things, but now that with this experience, I've learned that they're always up and ready to go. They know where to go get their food. They're ready getting their bus passes. They're just up and they're always everywhere.
As each day passed, Hines says it became easier and easier to engage with strangers because he found time and again just how generous they can be.
Hands down, the biggest surprise to me is how generous the poor are to one another. It didn't matter if it was a senior trying to make their Social Security check stretch or the homeless person who had nothing. They take care of each other. They share what they have with one another. They reached out to me not knowing who I was, gave me tips. I was given a sleeping bag by some men in a field. I was given food from people who had very little food. The poor are amazingly generous.
The people we interviewed they all come back to give back to the poor, and they all live poorly, but they still want to be able to give something back to the poor or back to the community.
When I headed out on the streets a week ago, I thought I was a pretty good person. I thought I was generous. I write my checks at the charity events, and I try to do good. And I think the poor, with all of their generosity, have taught me that I have a long way to go.
They really don't make airplanes like this anymore. It's an open cockpit Stearman biplane built in 1940. Originally, it was used as a trainer for pilots in World War II. After the war, it was a crop duster.
After the crop dusters were modernized, this became a banner tower where they had a tow hook on the back and it towed banners around the Oakland Coliseum until September 11th, and they banned flight around coliseums. At that point, they converted it to a passenger airplane, put it where you can ride 2 passengers in the front, and it's been giving rides since then.
It may not be sleek like modern planes, and it's not very fuel efficient, but it is strong and stable.
You can actually drop it from the top of an airplane, a hangar, and it won't damage anything. It's overbuilt. It was built so that kids in the war could slam it onto the ground time after time. And after they learned to fly in this, then they upped to the P-51s, the P-40 Mustangs, and or the P-40s and the P-51 Mustangs. But this was a trainer in the true sense. That's all the Army used it for, was training.
Although the plane is very heavy, its 450 horsepower supercharged engine allows for all the twists and turns that a stunt pilot could want.
The plane is fully aerobatic. It can do loops, rolls, spins, anything you want to put it through. It's capable of doing. It'll do 6 positive Gs and 3 negative Gs, which is a lot.
When he takes it up for sightseeing tours, Kent is sure to keep the plane straight and level, providing an unrivaled view of the valley.
What we do is we'll fly up, we'll get 1,000 feet over the valley, and we'll fly along the foothills, the mountains. You'll see swimming pools, people, cars. We're low enough to where you can identify everything on the ground. And we follow the foothills down to Palm Desert, and you see the entire valley down to the Salton Sea. Yeah, you've got the wind in your hair and the skies above you, and you see a 360-degree view at all times. Since it is an open cockpit, there's no obstructions. So it's a lot more scenic. You see the valley in a different sense.